All right, I want to go back to that breaking news we had for you earlier. Nike CEO Mark Parker stepping down from the company in January of 2020. Nike board member and the CEO of ServiceNow, John Donahoe, will replace Parker. Donahoe, also chairman of the board at PayPal, formerly the CEO of eBay. Mark Parker has been with Nike for 4 decades, been the CEO since 2006, so a nearly 14-year run coming to an end next year. Dan Roberts joins us now to discuss. Dan, funny, just about an hour ago, we were discussing the departure of Kevin Plank from Under Armour. Now, Mark Parker out at Nike. What do you make of the move?
I stepped out for a coffee, by the way, came back to the newsroom, and someone said to me, "Are you going to write about the Nike CEO?" And I said, "You mean the Under Armour CEO?" And she said, "No, the Nike CEO." And then I had to get caught up. Whoa, mind-blowing. It is, by the way, interesting because for years, the rumor that would recur was someone would come out with a report that Nike was about to or considering acquiring Under Armour. And then Under Armour would refute, Nike would refute, and it never happened. Now, maybe the timing is coincidental, by the way, but boy, that is a huge coincidence. And these companies, even though they're competitors, do talk to each other. So why is Parker out? He's just went on CNBC, by the way, focused mostly in the quick interview on John Donahoe's tech experience, said he'll really help us with our tech reinvention. Didn't really answer the question of why Parker is stepping down now. But he did say, "I'm not sick, I want to reassure everyone."
Well, he's remaining as the chairman.
Exactly.
So he's not leaving the company, but
exactly
he will not be the CEO. Yeah.
But, you know, he was a very well-regarded CEO, and his origins, kind of interesting. He was a design guy. Nike lifer, really comes from the design side and was
that's the heritage of the company.
Exactly right, and was praised for kind of bringing his design sensibility. But more recently, we know that Nike has had some cultural issues that have been heavily reported on. So it's difficult not to think that that had something to do with this, although you could argue that the story had blown over, so why now? But there were the cultural issues with women. That was sort of a huge story, and Nike had to replace a bunch of people. There was a little bit of an executive exodus, and there were reports that employees, female employees especially, were upset about the culture there. And then in addition, separate, but another kind of similar issue about 3 weeks ago was the Alberto Salazar scandal with U.S. track and field. And Mark Parker was on emails with a doctor that was working with Alberto Salazar, this disgraced coach who has now been banned from track and field for 4 years. And Mark Parker on these emails was saying, "Oh, good, keep going with your experiments. It'll be interesting to see how much testosterone athletes can be injected with where it wouldn't trigger a drug test." Now, that alone doesn't mean that he wasn't encouraging PEDs, but the emails were not great optics-wise.
And just very quickly, you know, Nike obviously very intertwined with track and field. Vin Lanana, longtime director of the entire track program at Oregon, left for the University of Virginia. This is very off of the beaten path here, but what happens in track, at the highest levels of track, impacts Nike greatly because that, of course, is the origin story.
And then there was also the weirdness with the allegations of the collegiate athletic programs and the tie-up with Nike, and Mark Parker basically trying to remove himself from any sort of assumption that Nike was going to be part of that whole scandal. But I mean, it's been a whirlwind few months for the company for sure, and that's even putting aside some of the even smaller, maybe but still big from a news cycle standpoint, issues like the Nike Air Max that had the flag, the Union flag on the back. I mean, not that any of these things are directly tied. That's the thing. We have to be careful that none of these are directly tied necessarily to the reason for why Mark Parker is stepping down. He has been there since 2006, a relatively long amount of time, but it is kind of hard to not think about those things as he makes his exit, which, by the way, won't happen until January of next year.
And the other
January 13th.
The other thing, too, as you mentioned, and it certainly makes me think of you, Brian, because you're a big sneaker guy, it's like Parker is sort of in the Tinker Hatfield side of the house, if you will, right? And so John Donahoe is now going to be worrying about the app and about DTC, and it's like it's just in a different phase of its corporate life, and not everyone makes the comparison. We all know that the fruit company that sells cell phones is a certain person who is in the leadership role there, and I don't want to go that route, but certainly there was a sensibility about Nike that what really mattered, and still does matter, is what the product looks like, feels like, how cool it is. And now I think with Donahoe coming in as CEO, it's like, yes, but also it's really cool to sell a lot of stuff.
Yeah, well, I mean, what we saw with
and to have the tech work.
Exactly, the Adapt BB, which is supposed to be this phone connected shoe that you can tie your shoes with. I mean, you do wonder if that's going to be the future wave under the new CEO. Now, you do have to baseline and say that it's not like this means all the engineers and all of the designers at Nike are going to be leaving because Parker is stepping down. I mean, this is an institution that's been around for a while, and they have thousands of employees, so it won't necessarily on day one change anything. But the long-term vision for this company, I mean, it does kind of remain a question with any sort of leadership change, Nike or not. So
stock has done very well.
Yes.
And a different situation from Under Armour, where with Under Armour, we don't wonder what secret thing is causing this. We know the company has had a tough 3 years, and shareholders have demanded a change. With Nike, it's a little bit of a mystery still, but we'll see how the smoke clears in the next year or so. Now, worth mentioning, we did talk about all the recent scandals for the company, but if it were one of those, you wouldn't think that he'd be staying on as chairman of the board. So maybe just had decided that the time was up. But earlier, seeing the Under Armour announcement, you wonder why Nike didn't kind of be like, okay, you know what, maybe we'll wait 24 hours, because same day.
Well, maybe people won't talk about Mark Parker anymore. Maybe they'll still be talking about Kevin Plank. You know who's really excited about this, though? It's probably Kevin Plank. Because now we're discussing Nike instead of...
Well, each announcement takes away the heat on the other announcement.
Yeah, that's right. Certainly a lot more news to come in the athletic wear space. Dan Roberts, thanks for joining us. Talk to you tomorrow.
Thanks.
Coming up here today on the final round, we'll have more. Plus, we will talk about the...
Hey investors, Zach Guzman here. Are you interested in learning more about the markets and getting the latest financial news? Well, then click right here to subscribe to our Yahoo Finance YouTube channel. Get the latest up-to-the-minute market analysis, big interviews in the world of finance, and information on how to manage your money every day wherever you are.